Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeartRadio network every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I want to say thank you to all of our listeners from Latin America. So thank you, and bienvenidos to you. I've been eating more Spanish food, Big C. It tastes really good to me. Also, you good old boys out in London, England, thank you so much for listening to Charlton and Big C Sports. Of course, I want to thank the great people from Canada, because you have the great national anthem, only second to the United States, Big C. And also, you good old boys down south. Can you believe it was 100 degrees today in California, Big C? I know you guys always have 100, but you have humidity with yours. How's it going for you good old boys down south, Big C? Yeah. That's funny. We have good old boys, Les Miles, and we were talking about it. You were just talking about it earlier in the week, Big C, that Les Miles was on the hot seat and Clay Helton was on the hot seat, and there's another coach at Auburn that might be on the hot seat. But this serves notice to all the coaches out there that you don't have to wait until the end of the season. Now, the shame in Les Miles losing his job, Wisconsin's undefeated. I mean, they're a very good football team, and they just blew out Michigan State. In Auburn, I think they lost to Auburn on a last-second field goal, Big C. I think it has more to do with something else. Yeah, and so that's part of this coaching carousel. Now, he is Caucasian, so he'll probably find a new job before the end of this week, Big C, because it's a good old boy network, and he's part of that. But I just think it's unfair for Les Miles to be in 4 games into the season, he's unemployed because he lost to an undefeated team and had a bad call that cost him another game. That just seems like some of the good old boys are tired of Les Miles because he really had a hard time even sticking around the last contract. Big C, your thoughts on what happened there?
Well, it came down to a $14 million buyout that was in his contract during the offseason. The reason why it didn't occur along with a little political wrangling, Charlton. But
yeah.
When you look at high-profile coaches in the past, people like Charlie Weiss, he never won more than 8 games at Notre Dame. He went to Kansas. He was 2-3 victories a year, staying around a couple of years. And Les Miles has been a competitor. I think what happens in the SEC is that everybody has this Nick Saban hangover, Charles, when you look at it.
Yeah.
And Gus Malzahn at Auburn, he was on the hot seat.
Yeah.
But, the loser of this game basically was going to go. And so LSU lost, so Miles is gone. But, everybody can't be in Alabama.
Yeah.
The SEC is a very competitive conference right now. The Big 10, Big 12, Big 13,
Big 19 pretty soon, Big C.
it's like watching soap operas trying to figure out how to get it.
Are you... wait, hold on, Big C. What are soap operas? I don't get that stuff in California. What are soap operas, Big C?
Well, no,
okay.
childhood memory.
We all have good memories of our childhood, that's for sure. And speaking of good memories, this segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealer, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive it, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. And again, Big C, we talked about yours being the one with the mud and the catfish. Someone actually thought you really put catfish in the back of your Escalade because you went from the grocery store. I said, no, he does that for his alarm. He lets it sit up in there a long time, Big C. Can you clarify?
And the beautiful thing about catfish, they don't always be they can breathe.
Yeah, they flip around a lot from what I understand, Big C. But we'll talk about a little bit of the Les Miles, saga. And, Helton also, it might be on the hook at USC too. We talked about them going into Utah. That would be a tough game for them to play at Utah. They actually dropped that game at Utah. That was a game where USC actually, they had the lead, Big C. So something's going on with the Trojans program where they're just not playing for Clay Helton. It doesn't matter who you bring in. That program is just a shell of itself when you have the great Pete Carroll there. So there's not only that job is opening at LSU, but there might be a USC job open and an Auburn job. And I would be so shocked if Notre Dame got rid of their guy, but they're 1-3 right now. That's not acceptable for Jesus. Big C, when you're 1-3. Yeah.
All the blame on him. But you kind of lose control of that program. You knew Notre Dame was in trouble at the start of the season, Charlton.
Yeah.
When they had 6 players arrested the week before the season opener.
Yeah.
And so that program was going to be this way. You saw that Kelly didn't have the control that he once had when he came to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So now, just like Bill Parcells in Buffalo, let's fire the defensive coordinator and keep family around.
Yeah, that's always true. That's always true, and we know that's the politics side of it, Big C. But do you think that, I know we bring it up maybe flippantly, but they got rid of Charlie Wise after he had some success under Brady Quinn, and then when he had to get his own recruits, they let him go. Could the same thing been happening? Yeah. 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 Yeah.
On the players that he recruited, he won his first 2 years there, but he had Tyrone Willingham's players, and they fired Tyrone Willingham for having the same record that Charlie Weiss had.
Well, we know there's always a bias when it comes to college coaching, Big C, but just running out the college football, we'll hit some college football, and then we'll hit into some NFL as well. But if you go down the top 20 right now, you look at Alabama, they're number 1 in the country. They're actually 4-0. No surprise there, other than the close loss they had at Mississippi. And they are playing this week at Kentucky, which should be an easy win for Alabama. That game is going to be on ESPN at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, Kent State might be as good as Kentucky, and they got beat 48-0 by Alabama. I still think my number 1 team in the country, I know there's a lot of people in Louisville that might disagree, but number 2, Ohio State, they're 3-0, and they play Saturday versus Rutgers. They were idle last week, which after the great Oklahoma win. I think Ohio State is just firing on all cylinders. But, you know, I know the team that you like is Clemson and Louisville. Clemson's number 3. They're 4-0 in this season, and they beat Georgia Tech 26-7. But this game coming up this week against Louisville, I think the team that wins this game will automatically have a shoe-in for the BCS championship. They'll be in the Final Four, Big C. Your thoughts on number 4, Louisville? They whipped Marshall 59-28. Their quarterbacks, I think, the Heisman Trophy front runner right now. So you have 2 of the Heisman Trophy front runners in this game, Clemson and Louisville. Your thoughts, Big C? Deshaun Watson. Yeah.
The preseason Heisman favorite, and he finished second in the voting last year. But Charlton, it's been a while since anybody's seen a quarterback like Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
This kid is so dynamic, so diverse as far as what he does game-wise. Whether it's with his legs, whether it's with his arms, he has such command of this Louisville offense under Bobby Petrino. Now, Watson is not a bad quarterback, but they struggled offensively this year, Charlton.
Yeah.
You think about it, they had their best game of the season last week, point production-wise, playing Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
But they only scored 26.
Yeah.
That's their best production game. Louisville sometimes has that by the end of the first quarter.
Yeah, they have that in the first quarter sometimes. But I tell you,
I really like Louisville in this matchup, Jones.
well, that's going to be a really good game, and, you know, it's at Clemson, so Death Valley is going to be rocking, obviously. They're going to have to touch that rock a lot more. Maybe Dabo Swinney won't drink so much before this game, Big C. But number 5, okay, I'm sure he will. Well, we have number 5, Michigan. They're 4-0. You know, it's a lot that happens when Harbaugh comes to town, and they had a nice they have started off the season so great. They beat Penn State last week 49-10, and I'm telling you, this is a team that might be knocked out by a Michigan State or an Ohio State, because as good as they are, they still have some teams in their conference that they have to contend with. Just your thoughts on the progress that Michigan has made. Saturday, they're at number 8, Wisconsin, which is also undefeated, and knocked LSU off. So, Big C, this is a game that Michigan has to really be mindful of who they're playing. Wisconsin's very good.
Well, you have to be equally impressed with both programs, Charlton. Both teams are playing first-year quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And these coaches have been very dynamic. You know, Harbaugh has turned the corner real quick with the Michigan program, but Wisconsin has always been solid. Brett Bielema had a great program prior to exiting, going to Arkansas.
Yeah.
There in Wisconsin, and even Barry Alvarez prior to him, who was the athletic director now. But, you know, Wisconsin has always been a steady team. They've used a lot of local kids. Michigan recruits nationally. Harbaugh has got that Bo Schembech with him.
He sure does, Big Z.
Playing with reckless abandon. They're very intense.
Yeah.
And, you know, the big house is full, which is great for college football, Charlton. When you get 114,000 people in a stadium, you got to just love the atmosphere and the emotion that goes on. I give Michigan a slight favorite in this game, a little bit of better passing game.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't see this being more than a touchdown game, Charlton.
It could be the game of the week. This is, again, like the playoff atmosphere this weekend with Louisville going into Clemson. You have Michigan and that Wisconsin game. I was impressed by number 6, Stanford, only in the final 4 minutes of the game, Big C, at the Rose Bowl in Los Angeles. Well, Pasadena, they edged UCLA by the score of 22-13, but they actually had a fumble that was returned for a touchdown with no time on the clock. And they're playing again at number 9 Washington up in the Great Northwest, and that's a Friday night game where it's going to be a little bit different feel. Washington has been a good team this season. I don't think their schedule's been as strong as Stanford, but McCaffrey had to be impressed with him. But UCLA is a better team than, if you think of what happened to UCLA, they lost on the road at A&M. They lost at home to Stanford. That Stanford loss really could have been by less than a touchdown, actually a couple of points, because that fumble was returned for a touchdown. But Stanford, they've had trouble going up to the Northwest. Last year they got off the hook when they won by beating Washington State. This is a tough Husky football team, Big C. This is a game that Stanford on a short week, they got to be better off than they were against UCLA. Your thoughts on that game? Yeah.
And has really turned his program around. He has people thinking about back to the days of Don James during the Rose Bowl era.
Yeah.
When the Washington Huskies were a dominant team in the Pac-10.
It's the Pac-10 at that time, Big C. Pac-10. They keep adding on.
Just give me a 12-pack of beers.
Well, they keep adding on conferences because they realize the more you add on, the more TV revenue you'll get. So they might be the Pac-16 if things go the way a lot of coaches want it, Big C. But I do think you're right about that game. Washington has really built a great program out there with Coach Peterson. We know how great he had Boise State rolling along there. So, David Shaw, this might be his toughest game of the season, Big C. If they get this game done, they may roll to another Pac-12 championship. Now, number 7, Houston, they're 4-0. They don't have the toughest of competition down the stretch. They did beat Texas State 64-3, which is a big score, but I don't think they're going to get in if they don't have bigger games, because we have Stanford playing big games, Michigan, Louisville, Clemson, Ohio State, and Alabama. Their toughest games are still ahead of them, Big C. So Houston, even though they're starting off to a great season, Big C, I just don't see them having a chance to catch these guys. They're playing Connecticut. Should be another blowout win for Houston.
Well, they're going to look at strength of schedule, and right off the back, everybody made that Oklahoma win at the start of the season a quality win. But
yeah.
Now you look at where Oklahoma is, Charlton. You can't call it a quality win.
No.
Oklahoma's a down program. Oklahoma will probably end up losing 4 to 5 games this season.
Yeah.
Because Bob Stoops, another one of those coaches that be looking for the house.
Yeah.
Around the country this year, Charlton. So these guys who get fired early really have an advantage.
Yeah.
Because they get a chance to put out their resumes. They get a chance to talk to schools.
Yeah.
They can go right into place as soon as the season is over.
Yeah.
But, when you talk about Houston, running the table, they're in the same conference as Louisville, so they're not going to get past Louisville as far as a smaller conference team getting into the championship. If Louisville runs the table with the wins that they've had already, Charlton, there's no doubt they'll be one of the top 4 teams in the playoff scenario.
Well, speaking of another top team, they just expanded their stadium. I think they do everything big in the state of Texas. We have number 10, Texas A&M. They're 4-0 again. They beat UCLA in the overtime game at College Station. And then Saturday they play at South Carolina, an SEC team. And then last week they beat number 18 Arkansas 45-28. Sumlin has a really good team down at Texas A&M, Big C. But again, when you look at that conference, they could have 2 losses and still be better than teams from other conferences that might run the table. Your thoughts on A&M, and do they have a chance to run the table in the SEC, Big C?
They have a marvelous chance. This team is starting to click on the heel at quarterback. Now, last year when they played South Carolina and over the season, they had a freshman quarterback. His name was Hill also.
Yeah.
But he's transferred since then. But he threw 7 touchdown passes in his first college game and well over 500 yards against South Carolina. South Carolina's been a little bit disarrayed. Now, we talk about coaches leaving early in the season.
Yeah.
You got to remember, Steve Spurrier walked out of that program last year, halfway through the season, said they needed a chance to put a coach in that was more energized.
Yeah.
And so this is a team right now that still hasn't got the speed on the ground. South Carolina is not the team that it was 5 years ago under Steve Spurrier. This should be an easy walk for Texas A&M.
Well, another great team and a great quarterback. This is a team that's had some issues over the years, but you talked about Tennessee, how they may get the upper hand on Florida this week, and they actually did it. On Saturday, they play at number 20 Georgia, and that's a 3:30 game on CBS. But last week, they beat number 16 Florida in a great game, 38-28. Tennessee's a team that's very talented. Neyland Stadium can't find much better of an atmosphere to watch a college football game. But then they're at Georgia on Saturday, which fell really hard to Mississippi. Georgia may have been a bit overrated. This is Tennessee's chance to roll, Big C. Did the Volunteers roll at Georgia?
I really like Tennessee's chances. That was a tough game last year against Florida, being down 21-3 Charlton in the first half. A lot of naysayers that run and even on design runs, Charlton. But
Yeah.
you look at this Mississippi-Georgia game last week. Georgia came out of that game smarting. Their freshman quarterback didn't finish the game.
Yeah.
They lost Nick Chubb again in the game. They're hoping that he'll be able to play this week, but he had an MCL strain.
Yeah.
So, I don't see much from Georgia. I see Tennessee running the table on this game, Charlton.
Well, Tennessee's very good. The last game we'll get to, Big City, before we jump into the NFL and a little bit of baseball, we have number 12 Florida State 3-1. They play Saturday at number 23, actually home versus number 23 North Carolina. That game's on ESPN at 3:30 Eastern Time. They beat South Florida 55-35. South Florida has a lot of talent, but they can't stand up to the guys at Florida State. But Florida State, I think they lost their hopes of being in the Final Four when they were blown up by Louisville. And that Louisville team, I mean, you might place them at number one if they blow out Clemson this week. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but that Florida State loss doesn't look as bad if Clemson gets blown out also by Louisville, Big C. But your thoughts on Florida State, even at 3-1, are they a bit disappointing, Big C?
Well, I don't know if they're a bit disappointing, Charlton, but I don't expect Jimbo Fisher to be around after the end of this year as Florida State head coach.
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook had his best game rushing over 270 yards last week against Central Florida. But, when you look at what Florida State has talent-wise,
Yeah.
they can play with anybody. And I don't see them losing another game during the regular season. Because after that Clemson game, they saw what the big boys play like, and they want to emulate them the rest of the way.
Well, speaking of emulating them the rest of the way, this segment is sponsored by the California Lottery. What can a buck do for you? Big C, I don't even know what a buck can do for me because I keep flushing that money down the lotto, and I keep thinking that I'm winning this money, Big C, but I don't know. The California Lottery has a good thing. They don't pay out a lot, but when they do, it's a home run. But I'm still saying it's not a bad investment compared to eating a hamburger, Big C. But has a buck done anything for you lately, Big C?
Charlton, I get them together, I go to that drive-through car wash, when I get enough coins to pop it in and go in there and spray my car down and,
Yeah.
Get that little vacuum and do that. That's what a dollar does for me. I find some change every now and then in the back of the seat.
Yeah.
Out of my overall.
Yeah, I understand that, Big C. And before we get into NFL football, I just want to say something that, a lot of people who love the world of golf, the great Arnold Palmer, lost a long life, though. I mean, it's hard to be sad for someone who lived to 87 and just lived the life of a king, actually made golf as big as it was, Big C. And someone like Arnold Palmer, just an icon, got a lot of people involved in golf. Just some of the highlights of Palmer's career: won the Masters in 58, 1960, 62, and 64. And he also won the U.S. Open in 1960, the British Open in 1961 and 62. Did that back-to-back. The Ryder Cups in 1961, 1963, 1965, 1967, 1971, 1973. Boy, I'm getting out of breath just realizing how many things he's accomplished, Big C. Also, PGA Tour titles, 62. Okay, that's according to USA Today. But just your thoughts on how great he was as a golfer and as an ambassador for the game of golf, Big C, on Arnold Palmer.
When you look at the great Arnold Palmer's life and his legacy, Charlton, Arnold Palmer brought golf to the masses.
Yeah.
When you step back, he created the galleries as we know them today. He created the fanfare. He brought the simple man into the game of golf, where it was an exclusive club prior to Arnold Palmer. Every man realized that he could play golf.
Yeah.
Not only that, Charlton, he probably was the greatest salesman for color televisions in the early 70s.
Yeah.
Those people wanted to see golf in color, not black and white, because it was hard to differentiate golf from the greens.
Yeah.
But Arnold Palmer was a very great individual. He and his wife had a great foundation, a hospital wing that they had built.
Yeah.
The Shriner Children's Hospital. But, he was that guy that everybody could identify with. The older golfers, the younger golfers. Everybody in America respected this man that understood the game of golf.
Yeah.
Because he played the game the way you were supposed to play the game. He represented athletics the way you're supposed to represent athletics, with dignity and with character.
Yeah.
You didn't hear these scandal stories about Arnold Palmer. He was a great family man. He created really the first rivalry in golf.
Yeah.
When that rivalry took off, that really let people know that golf was a competitive sport.
Yeah.
So he did so much for the older players, the younger players today. There's not a player on the PGA Tour that did not respect Arnold Palmer, and may God be with him.
Yeah.
And bless Arnold Palmer.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people who understand the golf game. Arnold Palmer was big in golf before we had ESPN, where you could see everything done over and over and over again. And the man played the game the way it should be played. He also embraced some of the diversity that came along late in golf. There was a lot of people that pushed back on that, but he's someone that also embraced Tiger Woods when a lot of people behind closed doors didn't.
He helped Charlie,
Yeah.
He helped Charlie Seifert.
Yeah.
Charlie Seifert was the first black pro. Charlie Seifert could never get into a tournament.
Yeah.
Arnold Palmer lobbied for him. He lobbied for Lee Trevino. These two minority individuals made the PGA Tour by the assistance of a great Arnold Palmer.
Yeah, so congratulations to Arnold Palmer, his career, condolences to his family. But if you're a golfer, you can hold your head a little bit higher because he's been on the greens and he's set the standard so high for not just his generation, for generations to come. So God bless Arnold Palmer, and may golf be strong and have more Arnold Palmers coming along in the future, Big C. And this segment is also sponsored by United Labor, guaranteed $100,000 life insurance with no medical questions. Tweet out the Charlton and Big C Sports. We are also endorsed by the American Cancer Society and the American Heart Association. We're looking to employ over 1,000 brokers to bring life insurance to all of the unions under the AFL-CIO. So Charlton and Big C Sports, not only are we a great radio program on iHeartRadio, we're also trying to create jobs for people. And Big C, speaking of jobs for people, looking at the NFL over the week, what some great games we had. Also, some surprising games we had. I want to start with Thursday night. We talked about New England with Houston. That was a 27-0 blowout by New England. We already covered that. But on Sunday, Green Bay, they're not looking all that strong, but they found a way to pull out a win versus Detroit, Big C. Your thoughts? Aaron Rodgers, is he slowing down, Big C?
Well, Aaron Rodgers, going into the game, Charlton, in the last 10 games, Stafford had thrown more touchdowns than Rodgers had.
Yeah.
So, Detroit offensively is a very demanding team when Stafford is hot.
Yeah.
But for some reason, Aaron Rodgers has the number. If you remember the Hail Mary pass last year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In Ford Field.
I don't like the fact, Big C, that they call it Hail Mary. I mean, shouldn't it be like Bless Mary? It shouldn't be like Bless or Good Mary, don't you think, Big C?
That's what they do on that. But Aaron Rodgers, told everybody calm down before this game.
Yeah.
And he came out and delivered. His receiving corps stepped up, made some tremendous catches. His mobility, but his offensive line, if you look at some of the plays he had in that game, Aaron Rodgers had 6 and 8 seconds on several occasions to pass the ball. There's not a defensive back in the world who's going to cover a receiver that long.
No, he's excellent.
The offensive line got the job done. They're coming together. They had some new pieces put in this year. They made the difference. Eddie Lacy still hasn't got up to speed, but he had a decent game.
Well, he always makes everybody look good, Aaron Rodgers, even if they're a little bit down. And the Oakland Raiders, now, I'm a West Coast guy, Big C, so I like when the Raiders win. It's just easier to cover football out here. But I think Tennessee got jobbed, okay, and I can admit it now that the game's over. But Mariota had a decent game. They had a stupid play by one of their offensive linemen, Big C. But for the Raiders to go on the road, 90-degree heat with all the humidity, get a 17-10 win at Tennessee. I think Carr is showing how elusive he is. He almost looks like he's elusive like Ken Stabler, Big C. But that was a big win for Oakland to go on the road in an early game on the East Coast, if you can call it that. And they get a win. The referees helped out in that one, but they did come away with the win in 17-10 over Tennessee. Your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I mean, that call on Taylor Lewan, the offensive tackle of Tennessee, coming down and trying to clean up the pile. And that's a dangerous move for players in the NFL. You got a defenseless guy there. And the officials were right for throwing that flag, but he cost his team the potential chance of winning a game where they were inside the 5. Moves them back out to the 20-yard line, Charlton. But the Raiders needed to go on the road and win a game. They'd lost at home the previous week. Going on the road, and I thought Tennessee would handle them the way they handled them in the preseason.
I think,
marvelous win for the Raiders organization.
Yeah, it was a great win for the Raiders organization. And when you look about it, first downs, the Raiders only had 17 first downs in that game. Tennessee had 19. The Raiders only had 4 rushing first downs. That's not good. Tennessee had 10 rushing first downs. But with Carr, they had 13 first downs passing. So Carr's the difference in that Raiders football team. So good job for Oakland. Denver, I still will go with Denver until they lose a game. They go into Cincinnati in a great place to play. Great environment, Big C. They come away with a 29-17 win. Denver looks very good this year, Big C.
They're the same team basically offensively that they were last season, Charlton. The only difference is they have a quarterback with some arm strength.
Yeah.
They can get the ball to the receivers down the field. You don't have to throw all these underneath routes, 5 to 18-yard dink routes.
Yeah.
You can go up top. You put the ball there 45, 50 yards. And you saw that on a couple of deep passes with Sanders and Thomas.
Yeah, and Thomas.
That's the difference in this team. And, the mobility that you're getting from Simeon. This young man is undaunted in what he's doing at quarterback.
Yeah.
He's really a rookie. Even though he's a second-year player, he's a rookie because he never played last year.
Yeah.
So, you got to praise John Elway and Gary Kubiak for the job that they've done. The defense is continuously playing lights out in Denver.
Oh, they're great.
They're keeping the pressure off the offense.
Yeah, very much so. And Big C, when you think about time of possession, it was Cincinnati had the ball at 32 minutes and Denver only had it 27 minutes, but they nearly doubled them up on the score. That shows you how good that their defense is. So great job by Denver again. Another team that I'm so surprised that they're undefeated, the Minnesota Vikings. They've lost Bridgewater. They've lost Peterson. They went into Carolina. Maybe there was some distraction because of all the issues going on around Charlotte right now, but to go into Carolina and win, they double them up 22-10 over the great Cam Newton, last year's MVP. Is it more about what's going wrong with Carolina, or is Minnesota, they're living on luck right now, Big C, but I'll take luck over skill any day, Big C.
Well, Charlton, this was an 11-win team last season. They lost Bridgewater.
Yeah.
They lost Peterson. They lost their left tackle, Khalil. But, this is the key about professional football.
Yeah.
Everybody's a professional.
Yeah.
Next man up. You got to look at it from that perspective. And the Vikings are doing that this year, Charlton. They've come in. Bradford, as long as you don't have to put a Band-Aid on him, he's going to be okay.
Yeah.
He can read a defense and deliver the ball as well as anybody. He's just so injury-prone. He looks like Gumby back there sometimes.
Yeah, well, Gumby might be the next quarterback if he goes down, Big C. He has to stay healthy, that's for sure. When you talked about yeah.
As aggressively as they are, and everybody knows that Zimmer's been a defensive guy throughout his career. He was a lifetime defensive coordinator prior to getting this job, Charlton. So the Vikings defense has been all over the opposing quarterbacks. They knocked Cam Newton out of the game for a play or two last week also. Yeah,
when you talk about that too, their first downs, they only had 2 rushing first downs. They had 11 passing first downs, and Bradford was 18 of 28, 171 yards. Cam Newton didn't have a great game at all, but he had 262 yards. But that normal leadership you see, that's something that he needs to really step that up for Carolina, Big C. Also, another game, Big C, I'm looking at Baltimore, a team that the Raiders are playing this week. They got a close win over a Jacksonville team that really hasn't looked that good this year, 19-17. But I'm telling you, when you win, whether you win by 10 or whether you win by 2, it's still a win. Your thoughts on Baltimore, but they look like they could be had by the Raiders if the Raiders can make an early cross-the-country trip and have an early start victory. I just see this as a game that Oakland could win. Your thoughts, Big C?
Joe Flacco has played decent ball. There was a lot of turnovers in that game last week with Baltimore and Jacksonville. But Joe Flacco can throw the ball deep, and that's been the Raiders' Achilles heel this year, Charlton. When you look at what Matt Ryan did to him, when you look at what Drew Brees did to him, and throwing the ball deep. And also Mariota hit a couple of deep balls. That could be a problem for Oakland this week. If they allow the ball to be thrown deep, they could be in deep trouble, Charlton.
Well, speaking of deep trouble, Big C, this is a team that they've had their own issues internally, Big C, the Buffalo Bills. Now, Arizona, who would have thought that they would be off to such a bad start? They were blown out against Buffalo 33-18. I know Coach Arians can't be too happy with the performance of Palmer because he's an all-pro quarterback. But, there's a fine line between being good and young and then being good and old, Big C. Is Palmer, we saw 6 interceptions last year in the NFC Championship game. He's not looking very strong, Big C. Will we see Palmer finish the rest of the year, Big C? Yeah.
And, that's not real good. I mean, he had players open in the end zone.
Wide open.
Up in the end zone.
Yeah.
So, you have to wonder what's wrong with Arizona's offense right now. They've had 2 games like this, opening game of the season and this game, the third game of the season. So, there's been a lack of consistency. They're gonna, is Palmer hurting somewhere? We don't have a report on that. But their offense just does not look good at all. But their defense really hasn't been steady either, Charlton. Look at the amount of points that they've given up. So Arians is going to have one of those team meetings and show what the end zone looks like. So this is where we need to go.
if they have to find out what the end zone looks like, I'm sure Aaron's can show them. It's going to be red because he's going to be pretty upset, Big C. Another great game. If you call it great, it's a great game because of the score. Washington 29 and the Giants 27. Eli Manning thought they could go undefeated, but the Redskins went in and pulled it out. They tried to make it about Josh Norman and all the issues that happened last year. But it's a great game if you look at that in the East, in the NFC East. Washington and the Giants, when they play good games, it's always good for football. Just your thoughts on that game. And Cousins got the win, Big C.
Eli Manning, in his NFL career,
has
led the NFL in interceptions in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So when you think about his productivity, yes, he has 2 Super Bowl wins. But he fell into those as wild card teams.
Yeah.
Not as division winners, Charlton.
Well, maybe he should spend more.
If you got a close game come fourth quarter,
yeah,
then Eli Manning will help you out.
Well,
there was a lot of disarray in Washington, worrying about what he was going to do.
Yeah.
This week, last week, they came out with the victory. The battle between Norman and
overrated.
The receiver and the defensive back did not control the game.
Right.
The quarterback and the defensive line and the offensive line are what control games, Charlton.
Well, Big C.
Well, Big C. The media put a lot of hype on them.
Yeah.
But they did not go back and go after Eli Manning for botching up the game. And if that had been Kirk Cousins, would have heard it all over the news.
Yeah,
it would. The Washington played great defense.
Yeah. Maybe he should spend more time studying defenses as opposed to making pizza commercials with his brother Peyton. And also, another great game, I thought was a great game anyway, Miami 30, Cleveland 24 in overtime. Now, both of them seem to have struggled. Miami's not that bad of a team, but it took them overtime to beat Cleveland, who really can't find his way. I think they'll be better off next year, Big C. But just your thoughts on Miami. Are they a team? They played Seattle very close up in the Northwest. They actually played New England very close. To get an overtime win, that's something they need. Do they have a chance to challenge in the East, Big C?
I don't think they have a chance to challenge in the East, Charlton. And the real story of that game was Aaron Pryor. Terrell Pryor. Quarterback from Ohio State.
Yeah.
This guy scored touchdowns in 3 different ways, Charlton. And he also played a little defensive back in the game.
Yeah.
He threw a touchdown, he caught a touchdown, and he ran a touchdown.
Yeah.
So when you think about the diversity of the best overall game of any single player this year in the NFL, but Miami, Cleveland had a chance to win that game. Once again, that botch call by the officials.
Yeah.
As we've seen so many of it. And why are you going to have instant replay, Charlton, if you don't whether it's college or professional ball? These rules need to change. If you're going to use it properly. But Miami's just so inconsistent, Charlton, about what they do.
Yeah.
They have to find some consistency on offense. Tannehill just has not stepped up to where they thought it would be 5 years ago, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So, he hasn't just become that true leader, but he hasn't done it yet.
Well, Big C, here's another game that I'm just curious because, we had a lot of job openings in college football, and some coaches, Nick Saban was successful in college, went to the NFL, did not find the same success, came back to college, and Alabama's just been lighting it up in college football. I look at the San Francisco 49ers. They went on the road to Seattle, and Seattle hadn't played that well all season. They had a close game against the Dolphins. They actually lost in Los Angeles to the Rams. They come home and got some home cooking. I guess they had a lot of fish. Not that catfish that you guys eat up in the down south, Big C, but they were stinking up that locker room for the 49ers. They won in a blowout 37-18. That game was not as close as the score. And I ask you this question. The Bay Area media, congratulations. You finally got the quarterback you want. Gabbert, and we haven't knocked Gabbert because we don't like him. I like every player that can play the game is great. But career-wise, he's just barely a 500 winner. No, he's touchdowns to interceptions. He has just 3 more touchdowns to interceptions in his whole career, Big C. But he's not. I think he's won like 8 games in 5 years. He threw for 119 yards against the Seattle Seahawks. He was 14-25, 119 yards. And that's what the Bay Area media wants because they've been calling for him all year long. All their broadcasters, even KMBR 680, they keep jumping on this guy. So that's what they want from Steve Young to Joe Montana to Colin Kaepernick, all NFL quarterbacks. And they're happy with 119 yards passing and being blown out 37-18. Really was like 37-10. Your thoughts, Big C, on the 49ers. What's Kelly trying to do? Get a job at USC?
Well, he knows that there's going to be some college jobs open up. LSU just open up. They'll open up
Yeah.
He is going to open up, so he's going to have his choice of where he wants to go because, he's probably been in talk with Jim Thomasula.
Yeah. What he's trying to find, what bank to go to with $14 million, Big C, is that what it is?
1 year, $14 million contract with the 49ers. But
yeah.
Right now, Chip Kelly's not coaching like a coach who wants to keep his job.
No.
He's coaching like a coach that's doing what Jen York, what's the guy?
Trent Baalke. Is it Trent Baalke now, Big C? Now, for all the big... Yeah.
This is our guy. He's going to be a great fit for our organization.
Yeah.
But a great fit for losing, running the organization into the ground. If the 49ers continue to play Gabbert, they'll have the number 1 pick in the draft. And if that's what they're playing for, that's what they're playing for. But to sit there and let this great heritage organization go downhill over one player.
Yeah.
And to have a beef with Kaepernick through the media. The thing I love about the media, Charlton, they're old school and all of this.
Yeah.
They never wore jocks.
They did.
Walk into the locker room and see a lot of jocks hanging around.
Yeah.
They never worn a jock, so they don't know the emotion and the idiosyncrasies of the game. They can sit there and write all the stories that they want.
Yeah.
But if they were to tell the truth, they could all tell the public that they were lying about Gabbert being a great quarterback and the savior of the 49ers.
Well, I even heard some people in the media, these big media guys, whether it's NFL Network or Fox or ESPN, saying that he's the answer and that he's cleared above the best quarterback option that San Francisco has. They had 6 first downs passing. Okay? 6 first downs passing, Big C. And that's inexcusable for any team, no matter who you like. So if Kaepernick's not starting in the next 2 games, Big C, I think Chip Kelly's going to be buying a house in Los Angeles because the Trojans need a head coach too, Big C. And as we get into head coaches, this final segment is sponsored by One Life Insurance. Life insurance, we're the leaders when it comes to final expense. And we're also looking to hire over 1,000 insurance brokers to help create life expense policies for American families. Tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio network. We're always trying to put people back to work. So again, you can get on Craigslist and all these other job sites, but tweet out to Charlton and Big C Sports. Big C, as we wrap up on the NFL, we had Kansas City 24-3 over the Jets. And your thoughts on Kansas City? I thought the Jets would play them closer, but Alex Smith had a decent game, Big C.
Alex Smith had a decent game, but you can say the same about Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
He was 1 interception shy of an NFL record, Charlton. He threw 6 interceptions. 6. And he threw those at critical times in the game.
Yeah.
You got to go back and think, is that the reason why the Jets weren't willing to pay him all that money? He's been a career backup. And he's had spot games where he's been really good.
Yeah.
But in a critical game where at the start of the season where you're going into Arrowhead and you're looking to be competitive.
Yeah.
And you throw 6 interceptions and just take your team completely out of the game, you have to wonder, are the Jets going to be looking for a backup quarterback, Geno Smith, to get into the lineup soon?
Well, that might be it, Big C, but everybody's on fire right now with the Philadelphia Eagles. I know they had a light schedule, but this game against Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh, I thought they put up a much bigger fight, but they don't seem to be the usual hard-nosed defensive football team. And it's shocking to see Philadelphia 34-3 over Pittsburgh. It's as if they didn't show up. They were taking them for granted. I know they're trying to make it seem like it's Carson Wentz, who had a good game, almost 300 yards passing, but it's that Philadelphia defense. When you think about it, they had 11 first downs passing for Philadelphia, 2 rushing, and Pittsburgh was not that far behind. They had 11 first downs passing and 10 rushing. Now, time of possession, the Steelers had the ball for 34 minutes. Pittsburgh had it 25 minutes. It was Philadelphia 34 minutes. Why are they playing so good? Their defense is outstanding, Big C.
Well, when you look at that defense, Charlton, in Philadelphia, they're the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL.
Yeah.
And so when you have the number 1 ranked defense, and the offense is right there also, Carson Wentz has been very steady as starting quarterback. But you got to look at his 2 long touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Okay?
They were runs.
He threw a dink pass to Darryl Sproles.
Yeah.
Darryl Sproles ran 65 yards after he caught the ball. I mean, he's still a jitterbug. If he was 6 inches taller, Charlton, he'd be faster than Usain Bolt.
Yeah, I think so.
He jumped out at least 4 to get into the end zone.
Yeah.
And you look at his first touchdown pass, same thing, Charlton. You throw a 12, 15-yard pass, and you got receivers maneuvering because they're putting so many people up in the box.
Yeah.
The running game wasn't as strong. They lost Matthews, so that's going to put some trying challenges on them next week.
Yeah.
Sproles can do so many things offensively, and you wonder why teams keep letting go. You look at the San Diego Chargers when Darren Sproles was there, Charlton.
Yeah.
A consistent playoff team. You look at the New Orleans Saints when Darren Sproles was there, a consistent playoff team.
Yeah.
You look at Philadelphia, now he's found the right system with Peterson at quarterback, Wentz. I mean, Peterson is head coach, Wentz is quarterback.
Yeah.
He's back into his comfort zone. He is a difference on that offense. I like what Carson Wentz is doing. He's 3-0 as a rookie quarterback. He has not thrown an interception, and he's thrown over 100 passes already, Charlton.
Yeah.
So you got to look at the poise of this young man. You know, we witnessed this before in the NFL draft where some players were and somebody took the other quarterback second. Aaron Rodgers versus Alex Smith took a long time to mature. The fight with Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf. If you go back, Ryan Leaf started out his NFL career 2-0.
Yeah.
Okay? Peyton Manning started out 0-2. We saw where those careers went.
Yeah, that's them.
Early on Dak Prescott and Wentz and all other rookie quarterbacks. So we'll see as the clock ticks in the fall.
Well, this final segment is brought to you by Beneath His Wings Foundation.org and also CYNN Entertainment. When it comes to the motion, Cynthia Evans is the best in Northern California. Indianapolis 26-22 over the San Diego Chargers. Andrew Luck, not great, but actually has a win for them under his belt. Your thoughts on Indianapolis? Can they start to right the ship, Big C?
T.Y. Hilton, not Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
T.Y. Hilton. That game-winning touchdown, Charlton, was a simple 11-yard slant.
Yeah.
Two defensive backs missed T.Y. Hilton. They had clean shots on him, and they missed him. He took it to the house.
Yeah.
Andrew Luck is still struggling at quarterback. You know, when you get to that point in the game and you're relying on a quick hitch, and that quick hitch goes for 60 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah.
T.Y. Hilton was a difference. He had a catch earlier in the game, Charlton, where he tight-roped the sideline and got the toes. That wasn't a pass from the quarterback. That was a catch in the athleticism of the receiver.
Yeah.
Indianapolis is still struggling defensively. You know, Phillip Rivers is not a very mobile quarterback, so when they run up against quarterbacks that have some mobility that are not going to be in that one spot where you know is, they're going to struggle. So, you know, they're not going to be a dominant team for a while, Charlton.
Well, Big C, I think a lot of people are surprised how the Rams are in first place in the NFC West. They are the first place in the NFC West. So, you know, I think he can, you know, it's just weird how they get the number one pick. They take Goff, who hasn't played, and they go on the road and they beat up on the Buccaneers 37-32. It wasn't really a beat-up game. It was just a good game. Both teams had, as far as first downs, Tampa had 30 first downs. LA only had 18 first downs, and it's so weird seeing LA for football for a long time, Big C. But I'm impressed with the way they're starting to turn around. They're starting to gel a little bit more, and they had 8 rushing first downs for LA, Big C. Your thoughts on the Rams? Do they have a chance to compete in the West? Because Arizona's down, Seattle's good. You know, San Francisco, I don't know what they're doing. But could this be a wild card team, Big C? Yeah.
And, you know, to get him on and bring Jeff Goff in, you know, he was almost proving Aaron Rodgers that, hey, just settle down.
Yeah.
And he's been 2-0 in his last 2 starts. They employed Todd Gurley a little more last week, Charles, which balanced out the offense. You got to have Gurley. You got into the end zone. But that's what they have to do. Fisher needs to understand. Todd Gurley will make a quarterback's job easier for the Rams. They have a tremendous defensive line.
Yeah.
You know, but Todd Gurley is the key to the Rams offense.
Yeah.
Regardless of who you're playing at quarterback. Keenum can get the job done, but he has to be able to hand the ball off to Gurley.
They definitely got to get the ball off to him, Big C. And this game also, last night we saw Dak Prescott, just an impressive quarterback. And unfortunately, I still hear people saying they can't wait until Romo gets back. I mean, they blew out the Chicago Bears last night, made them look like they're not really a good football team in Chicago. I know they're having some issues, but this guy can run the ball. He can throw the ball, and that running back they have, Ezekiel Elliott, he's going to be a star. I'm really impressed with the Cowboys. I'm looking at them as the team to win the NFC East. I know that Philly's undefeated right now, but when it comes down in the final 10, I guess maybe after you pass the 10th week, Big C, I'm looking at Dallas with their running game. They look really impressive, Big C. Your thoughts on Prescott?
Well, you know, I've been impressed with him since the preseason, Charlton, and I think the rest of the NFL has also. But when you look at what he has tool-wise, Charlton, his mobility, and he's poised running. He just doesn't pull the ball down the run. He'll pull down the ball 5 times.
Yeah.
You know, he's throwing the ball downfield. He's getting on stride to receivers. He's a big quarterback with poise. You know, he wasn't in a passing conference in college, but what he did at Mississippi State, he led this program from obscurity to national promise. And he's doing the same thing with the Cowboys. You think of the Cowboys last year at the same time. Did they have a better record? No. So what can Tony Romo do that Dak Prescott can't do? He hasn't made the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, you might as well ride this horse that you're riding right now. And if you keep riding him and he keeps winning, you got a future.
Yeah,
Tony Romo, you got maybe 2 years left if he's your starting quarterback.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott, you can get a decade out of him, Charlton.
Well, speaking of that, Big C, the final game tonight's Monday night game. We have Atlanta at New Orleans, and I know you have two $200 million quarterbacks, so over $200 million throwing the ball around at New Orleans. Now, Atlanta with Ryan going in against Drew Brees. Drew Brees has to get on track tonight. Your thoughts on that game, Big C? Yeah.
They had to return back to the Superdome after Hurricane Katrina with Atlanta and New Orleans. And such an emotional night that night in the Superdome. Those people in the New Orleans nation needed some hope, something to look forward to, and the New Orleans Saints brought that back home with that victory that night, Charlton.
Yeah.
And, this is a game of two teams that are kind of trouble. They're at crossroads right now. Atlanta won their first game last week. New Orleans has still not won a game. Great offense, Drew Brees. They don't have a running game, and that's been the difference. He's going to go out and get you 350 yards passing. But Julio Jones is a little bit on the camp along with Sanu.
Yeah.
Can they get past this young New Orleans secondary? Can they raise havoc on them tonight? Because if they were able to recuperate during the week, Jones had the hamstring or the calf last week against the Raiders. But, if Ryan has those two receivers, they shouldn't have any problems with New Orleans. So.
Well, and the last thing we'll cover, Big C, my hearts and thought go out to Cuban-born Jose Fernandez, a great baseball player for the Florida Marlins, lost his life over the weekend, so our hearts and thoughts go out to him. And also, on a bit of an up note, McElroy wins the playoff final, and he won the FedEx Cup, grabbed $10 million in prizes, Big C. But the biggest story in the last 60 seconds or so, Big C, just Vince Scully. What a magical call last night at Dodger Stadium. Chavez Ravine walk-off home run. Big C, your thoughts?
Think about the greatest career in radio broadcasting, John, probably in broadcasting overall.
Yeah.
Vince Scully. To be able to have his last game go out with a call like that.
Yeah.
A walk-off home run in the 10th inning, Charlton. And a historical man at a historical time in Dodgers with their fourth consecutive NL West title.
Yeah.
But Vince Scully, to be able to go out like that, making that magnificent call only the way that he can make that call, Charlton. It reminds you of in '88 with Kirk Gibson.
Yeah.
He kicked the home run against the A's. And so many magical moments have been given to the fans of baseball by Vince Scully. And what a fitting moment, so poetic, to have that last moment of him in the booth being sent away into retirement off a great home run in the 10th inning, walk-off home run.
Yeah.
For a historian, for an ambassador of the broadcast booth, one of the greatest broadcasters ever, Vince Scully, we thank you, and you got your kudos with that home run last night.
Well, he sure did. The heavens were definitely shining on him. And speaking of shining, every Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, worldwide, follow Charlton and Big C Sports. We'll keep it real as we cover sports worldwide. We also want to say, let's keep our women safe. If you see any women in trouble, just call 911. There's no tolerance for domestic violence. I also want to say thank you to everybody who followed Charlton and Big C Sports, whether you're in London, England, whether you're in Canada, even if you're in the great United States. We thank you very much, and we always appreciate you. And as we say every broadcast, Big C, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.